Plato's Republic. And I said, well, yeah, I've read Plato's Republic. And I've, I told him about Plato's cave, and I've told him about all these things, Plato, Socrates, all that. And sometimes Janine and I laugh about, old Steve Martin joke talking about Socrates and Plato or Plato and Socrates. And so I said, of course, Plato and Socrates, some of my favorite people in the whole world, reading some of that old literature. Well, for those of you that haven't read it, Plato's Republic is probably one of the first books ever written that can be considered parapolitical and philosophically political in a lot of respects, even though when I refer to parapolitics, that of course is considered relatively, the word itself, parapolitics or parapolitical, is considered a relatively new word. And loosely defined, well, my definition of it is that it's political actions of subterfuge, secrecy, and deceit which are hidden from the public. Pretty much conspiracy theory. Calling it parapolitical is kind of a nice way of avoiding the conspiracy theory trappings and being told that you need to wear a tinfoil helmet or a tinfoil hat. I've been accused of that many times, so many times that the people who do so bore the hell out of me. But anyway, it's like they can't come up with anything new. So they always go back to the tinfoil hat stuff, which is bizarre. But when you're analyzing parapolitical conspiracy theory or parapolitical conspiracy, you have to start realizing that parapolitical, when you're trying to reveal subterfuge and you're trying to reveal deceit and some of the things that are going on behind the scenes that are hidden from the public, you have to do so without any regard for partisanship. And I think people don't put that into account when they listen to my program. They think I'm just like any other talk show host who wants to push a political agenda, and that's not true. I'm not. I mean, we talk about the paranormal and the parapolitical. Paranormal is, of course, things that go on behind the scenes, occult activity, things of that nature. Parapolitical is when we move into secrecy, when we move into the deep state, and we move into other places which are, not necessarily partisan. And so when I get these comments from people saying that, they don't like hearing the political shows, I say, well, they're not political. They're parapolitical. You don't want to hear that something is going on behind the scenes because it's going to step on your little hyper-partisan toes. And I don't care, because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to basically massage your hyper-partisan toes. No, I'll step on them, and I'm going to step on them because the American people need to know that when you're attacking conspiracy theory, or when you're going after the conspirators, or when you want to talk about conspiracy theory, it has nothing to do with partisanship, and a true objective thinker knows this. I mean, if you're a true objective thinker, you know exactly what's going on this program, and you know what I'm trying to do, because facts are painful. And for the hyper-partisan psychotic, facts are terrible. And they don't want to admit that there's a much greater majority of Americans that suspect the government of continually taking part in felonious and nefarious activities. No, they want to think, we did our best. We got what we wanted. No, you didn't. And you're not going to get what you want. I can already feel that now. If you can't feel that now, bask in the afterglow, but it's not going to last. It's not going to last. I mean, it's so overwhelming. I've talked with so many people who are just waiting day by day by day by day, waiting for the next thing to happen, the next shock to the system, the next trauma. They're also not so sure that this is going to last. It might. But so many people have these attitudes that no, something is going to happen beyond what has happened ever in the history of this country. And even though you may feel that a vote for a nationalist populist will ensure the country will be great again, those who are aware of conspiracy history know that many seats of power have always been manipulated and defeated by the darkest of plans and some of the most notorious schemes. Blind faith in leadership has always led to disaster, and those who basically have the blind faith should be warned that it was somewhat of a virtue when you were in grade school. Hey, he has blind faith. He believes in the country. Yeah, well, now you're older and it's kind of naive to pretend that it's still that way when it's not. And it's obviously not. And, maybe you can say that I'm too cynical, but, you have to be somewhat skeptical and cynical of this country. You have to be somewhat skeptical and cynical of the government. And the reason why is because you have to dig deep into history, and you have to see and you have to look at do some comparable studies of what is happening, what you're seeing. And the frightening part is how you don't even have to contact a soothsayer or a seer or a prophet or a psychic, because you can go, as I said earlier, we were talking about Plato's Republic. There's dialogue in Plato's Republic where Socrates and his friends are talking about the nature of different political systems and how they change over time, and how one form of government can slowly evolve into another form of government, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Well, Socrates states something that many Americans would probably take issue with, and that is tyranny is probably established out of other regimes like democracy. Tyranny is probably established out of other regimes than democracy. Tyranny is probably established out of more regimes and other regimes like democracy. I sat there and I was like reading that over and over again, saying to myself, what better place for tyranny to rise up than in a democracy? And I'm just not talking about the United States. I'm talking about other countries in Europe. I'm talking about the whole world. See, we forget that what is happening on a world stage is affecting us every day. And I'm sure many of us don't even look beyond our morning paper or American internet sites. And, one of my friends commented to Janine, we were having breakfast, and Janine was saying that I should talk about something that was more, in the world or more worldwide or more global. And she said, well, all he talks about is America right now. And I said, no, I'll talk about something global. But the global climate right now is still uneasy. And as I said before, you're naive to think that everything is cool now, that everything's back to normal, because it isn't back to normal. And there was a very popular analyst of Plato's Republic named Andrew Sullivan. And he has a video online that's gone viral. He's got some writings that have gone viral that I want to share with you tonight about how Sullivan he accurately describes a future that Plato saw that actually magically describes the present, where we are now. So I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to get into some deeper things that you should consider about where we are now in our present, and how it most certainly seems to be a time of fulfillment in many ways that we can count. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
This is Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Clyde Lewis, you're listening to Ground Zero. As I was saying last night, my friend Lucian, he told me that he found something about Plato's Republic. There was a very popular analysis of Plato's Republic by Andrew Sullivan, and he accurately describes a future that Plato saw that magically describes the present. And this is what was said. The longer a democracy lasted, Plato argued, the more democratic it would become. Its freedoms would multiply, its equality spread. Deference to any sort of authority would wither, and tolerance of any kind, inequality, would come under intense threat. And multiculturalism and sexual freedom would create a city or a county like a many-colored cloak decorated in all hues. The rainbow flag polity, Plato argues, is for many people the fairest of regimes. The freedom in that democracy has to be experienced to be believed. with shame and privilege in particular emerging over time as anathema. But it is inherently unstable. As the authority of elites fades, as establishment values cede to popular ones, views and identities can become so magnificently diverse as to be mutually uncomprehending. And when all the barriers to equality, formal and informal, have been removed, when everyone is equal, when elites are despised and full license is established to do whatever one wants, whatever anyone wants, you arrive at what might be called late-stage democracy. There is no knowing to authority here, let alone a political experience or expertise. The very rich come under attack as inequality becomes increasingly intolerable. Patriarchy is also dismantled and families become divided. We almost forgot to mention the extent of the law of equality and of freedom in the relations of women with men and men with women. Family hierarchies are inverted. A father habituates himself to be like his child and fear his sons, and a son habituates himself to be like his father and to have no shame before or fear of his parents. In classrooms, as the teacher is frightened of the pupils and fawns on them, so the students make light of their teachers. Animals are regarded as equal to humans. The rich mingle freely with the poor in the streets and try to blend in. The foreigner is equal to the citizen. And it is when a democracy has ripened as fully as this, and this is Plato saying this, Plato argues, that a would-be tyrant will often seize the moment. He is usually of the elite, but has a nature in tune with the time, given over to random pleasures and whims, feasting on plenty of food and sex, and reveling in the non-judgment that is democracy's civil religion. He makes his move by taking over a particularly obedient mob and attacking his wealthy peers as corrupt. If not stopped quickly, his appetite for attacking the rich on behalf of the people swells further. He is a traitor to his class, and soon his elite enemies, shorn of popular legitimacy, finds a way to appease him and are forced to flee. Eventually, he stands alone, promising to cut through the paralysis of democratic incoherence. It's as if he were offering the addled, distracted, and self-indulgent citizens a kind of relief from democracy's endless choices and insecurities. He rides a backlash to excess. Too much freedom seems to change into nothing but too much slavery, and offers himself as the personified answer to the eternal conflicts of the democratic mess. He pledges above all to take on the increasingly despised elites. And as the people thrill to him as a kind of solution, a democracy willingly, even impetuously, repeals itself. Now, Plato was not an apocalyptic clairvoyant like the Apostle John, nor was he like Nostradamus. His analysis of how democracy can turn into tyranny is a complex one, more keyed toward ancient Greece than the United States. But how remarkable is it? And we take a passage from Plato's Republic and apply it magically to our own lives here in the 21st century. Plato's prediction can apply to any democracy in any moment in history. Even more frightening was another vision I stumbled upon from George Washington. And it talks about a future of America that is even more frightening. I would say that the more we read and the more we try to understand, I mean, I was given today a passage from Nostradamus that somebody said was about Donald Trump. And I stopped and I thought, well, anything can be applied to this. And even Plato's Republic, when I was reading that passage from Plato's Republic, people want to apply it to Donald Trump, but I would apply it to anyone in the world who wants to take apart a democracy and basically destroy it and to make way for a world leader. And believe me, the attempts are still going on, even though we have a president who says that he will shun away from globalism because there are darker subjects, darker objects behind the scenes that most certainly are trying to bring down and shake down the President of the United States at this current moment in time. You would have to agree that something behind the scenes is doing this because we see that there is a war of words and ideas, an ideological war, that is pitting the American people against the media, that is pitting a certain group of people against each other. And as I said before, this can create a police state lifestyle. It can create a state of mind where everybody believes that they are the enemy and they turn on each other at the drop of a hat. And this is happening a lot. I've seen it a lot on Facebook. I've seen it a lot everywhere else. I think it's time to call it what it is.